Yep, I see him.
Chamber of Commerce lady. What is her name? Stacy.
Hi.
There he is. We can set our watch by you, Brian.
Joe, it's
Glad
5.
you made it.
Joe, thank you. It's 5:30.
5:30?
MIT course right now.
Okay.
MIT course.
Yes.
Okay, folks, it's 5:30. I'd like to get this work group meeting started at 5:30 on March 7th. Take a deep breath. Everybody ready? Okay, let's join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Michelle, can we have a roll call, please?
I'll go get it in a minute.
Ready for me?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Bryson,
Here.
Commissioner Ross,
Here.
Commissioner Kreidler,
Here.
Planning Commissioner Keith is absent, Community and Economic Development Representative Moran,
Yep.
City Manager Tapman.
Here.
Okay.
Make a motion to excuse Commissioner Heath.
Support.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Support.
Any changes? It's not like,
Yes, great. Great
we
job.
gotta use the same one all. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nope. Okay. Boy, you guys just keep showing up. That's great. I think, you want to start with Jeff or Dave, or who have we got tonight?
Are you doing public comment, Joe, or are you gonna approve the minutes first?
What,
How do you want to?
Might as well get the minutes.
yeah,
out
might as
today.
well get the
Well,
minutes out of
it's
the way.
skipping it. Okay. We did.
Any additions or deletions to the minutes? Okay, motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion's approved. Okay. Then we'll go to Mr. Bohm. Would you like to
Yeah, no, good morning, happy to address the group.
fill us? Well, yeah, but it's being recorded.
yeah.
That's, yeah.
Camera and all that stuff. Is there any reason why it couldn't be over there, though? Just to...
Well, we put it there last week so people didn't have to walk.
Testing.
over there. So we can move it again. I don't-
The only thing is though too, is if people do just pipe up from their seat, that mic might pick it up a little
Okay.
bit better over
I
there.
don't think this is turned on, you know, this mic's not.
It's recording.
All right,
Yeah.
all right. So, first of all, I just full disclosure, I do not have a dog in this fight, okay?
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, Jeff, would you introduce yourself?
So my name's Jeff Baum. I'm the county board chairman here in St. Clair County. And we had a group, who got a chance to go through Eddie the other day? Please raise your hand. And I would be more than happy to offer that up and show you that again, anybody that would like to do. I refer to Eddie Elementary. There's the closed school that is located in St. Clair. The Vinkiers, Mike Vinkier, Pat Vinkier, Rob Durick actually own Eddie Elementary. They actually own Gehring and the vacant property. And the reason I refer to Eddie, and we're going to talk a little bit about it, I've been helping them fill that building for a reuse. One of the issues that we had at the county was we had 7 vacant schools throughout St. Clair County. We had 7, okay? Just in St. Clair itself, we have Eddie, which was vacant. We have the old middle school, which is vacant. And we have St. Mary's Church, which is vacant. 3 vacant schools right smack dab in the middle of St. Clair, okay? So it's been a really weird journey, I guess. Eddie opened up in January, and I can tell you all the permitted space in Eddie is full. Okay, 2 months, and you guys got a chance to walk through the building. We have the Friends of the St. Clair Rivers in there. I'm actually in the fitness business. My fitness center's in there. We've got the St. Mary's food pantries in there. We've got the commercial kitchen, which is full. I got a crafting gal renting the space to do crafting, upstairs offices, so on and so forth. We're very close with the YMCA on 150 slot daycare in the back of the building. been tremendous amount of inquiries and tremendous amount of really neat, useful repurposes, okay? Laura called me up, said, hey, can you come on down to take a look at the building? What do you guys, 300 Broadway? Take a look through there and just kind of, just chit-chat a little bit. So we walked through there, and I said, why don't you get a group together, come take a look at Eddie, and let's talk a little bit maybe about what I'm seeing in the market, because I'm the one that's facilitating all the phone calls and everything else. Everything that we are getting, no one's looking for 3,000 square foot. They're looking for 300 square foot. We were at a meeting the other day. 4% of the people used to work from home. It's 22% now. Just do the sheer numbers in St. Clair County, 160,000 people. If you said 25% of the people are actually in the workforce, that's 40,000 people. Before, if you had 4%, that's 1,600. You do the math, we're talking around 9,000 people or so are now actually working from their home. Working from your home sounds great. When you sleep in your house, you cook in your house, and you do a lot of other stuff. It's kind of nice to get outside of your house sometimes, right? You can't afford, generally, they're not looking for $1,000 or $1,200 type of stuff, but the demand that we have seen through Eddie is the $350, $400 a month, kind of include the internet, small little co-working space, office space. Dan Casey, actually, our economic development director, was on the tour too, and he talked about that. I had 5 phone calls last week. I had 2 over the weekend. Even had one gal, actually 2 people now, and one of them may even been in the group on the tour where their companies are now giving stipends to work from home. You don't have your office space anymore. Here's X amount of dollars. Figure it out, right? Is really what it comes down to. So when I went through and I looked at a portion of, now this is just my narrative and seeing what the market is going to determine what's out there. The phone calls are going to say, okay, we need to be looking at this. To the point we're looking at converting the back now. A lot of you got through that old section there. That will become most likely some additional office space. There again, the people that need a shingle. People that are in the financial stuff, people that are into some of the insurances and things need a physical address. You can't use your home for a lot of these businesses. I'm finding out your home doesn't work. You need a physical address. So that provides you a physical address. There again, you don't want to spend a lot of money on that physical address, but you're looking to get a physical address, okay? So I just, there again, this is just me, and I don't have a dog in the fight. I saw some of your lower space, some of your smaller kind of office right away. That to me just popped up, co-working, kind of that type of space. Some of your incubator type of stuff that Dan Casey talked about. They actually run an incubator in Port Huron. They're looking to expand this incubator concept out because the reality of A, people from working home, B, people wanting to do a startup business. Hopefully you get them off the ground, and then they organically grow into a larger business in your community, right? So does that building, the question would be to I guess this group, does some of that building lend itself to that potential and that possibility? One of the other suggestions I had made, Dave Struck, which is our Metropolitan Planning Director, they do a very good job of facilitating a lot of times, community input type of sessions. If that was something, I don't even know where you guys are at in this process. Maybe you've had lots of meetings, so on and so forth. I'm just offering up those types of services that may be able to assist to get some, end game, I guess, or some consensus with that. So, I'm seeing particular things in the market right now just because I'm the face of that. Do I think everybody's going to be going back to office buildings tomorrow? Probably not. And if anything, it's probably going to get more prevalent with some of the co-working. So do some of these buildings, lend itself for that. So that's kind of, and I know the buildings, it's unique, the upstairs with the theater portion, the downstairs, has its different things and stuff. But so that's kind of just my little narrative in 2 cents. And there again, anybody else that would love to come through Eddie, I'd be more than happy. Laura could line up another opportunity for those that didn't get a chance to see it, because I think when you see it, there's and that school sat empty for 3 years. It was like I mean, they just walked out of the place. There was desks and tables and chairs and stuff and everything else. It's quite a interesting transformation. But I think there's that piece of it, the co-working piece that we're seeing in demand that may be able to have a fit or some life, down here for you guys. So there again, no dog in the fight. Just telling you what's kind of exists out there in the market that we're seeing. If you need some assistance from the county, I'd be more than happy to open up for questions and answers. I mean, I can talk about.
Well, what's the ownership structure and price point?
So it's private ownership, which
Okay.
makes it easier.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to deny that. It's they own the buildings. They determine what the price. But what we've really seen with the market and what people can afford and what the demand is. There again, people are not looking for 1,000. They're not looking for 3,000 square foot. They're looking for 300. They're not looking to spend $1,400 a month. They're looking to spend $400. And a lot of these people have the ability to work out of the home, but I got to get out of the house for a couple hours a day. The kids are driving me crazy. The dog, the cats. It's just you got somewhere to sneak up to. It's just it's a reality of. And if there's 8,000 or 9,000 people working in our community from home, take a percentage of that. How many of those people? I guarantee if there's 8,000 or 9,000, 10% of them are looking to go somewhere. I can't believe the amount of phone calls. I totally underestimate. I'm in the gym business, right? At least you got to show up to the gym. I mean, that's what I'm used to. I've been doing it 29 years, so working from home is not the norm for me. But seeing that demand, totally underestimated how big and how much is out there. So.
What kind of assistance, financial and otherwise, could we rely on the county for?
Can't answer that. I don't even know what your structure is. There's different opportunities with grants, but depending on how ownership, depending on structure. I know Dan Casey talked a little bit about some of the EDA grants, and they are very hard, very competitive, but there's assistance there that we could help assist if that was a direction. I mean, we have received substantial monies for some of these business incubators, startups, those types of things. But there's nobody in this room that has that level of, and I'm not throwing stones at anybody. I've seen these things, man. This is they're not easy to write. You need people to do it. We're fortunate at the county. We have 900 employees that work for the county. We have an economic development agency. There's things that we could lend to, assist in that retrospect. But you really got to, I think, somewhere along the line, what's ownership look like? What gives us the best opportunity to move forward? What should it be? So on and so forth. And I don't have a good answer for you in that realm.
Private versus city ownership, which is
Well, private's easy because I can walk in and say, hey, you guys got to dump $100,000 into this place. It's a little, the private thing is, that's easy, but I'm just going back. I'm going back to the market. What am I seeing? Well, originally that back wing, that was going to be senior living. That's what we talked about. They have a school that they converted in Yale, downtown Yale. They own it to 30 senior living units. There. So that was kind of the original thought, and that was kind of the original intent. And after seeing the stay home, the work, totally went in a different direction on it because the demand is this today, right? Not going to say there's not a place for the senior component, but that in that particular building, the demand, and that's what's driving it. So.
Dan had mentioned to me that placemaking grants are very popular right now and may apply to this, but he mentioned little else in the way of grants that were, readily available. So.
Yeah, well, I think with the EDA, they're looking to expand their footprint on this incubator stuff that we talk about. I mean, and when you say incubator, it can even just be the small startup, the gal that makes the soaps out of her house that doesn't have a lot of money to start, So we had a craft show 3 weeks ago. 2,000 people walked through Eddie. They had 38 vendors, just this weekend thing. I'm not into the crafting world, and man, I couldn't believe it. So, take what works and runs with it.
Any questions from the group, the gallery?
I would really encourage to do another tour and bring people through to see what's happening. The building's 1939. I mean, it's not sexy. I mean, by any stretch. It's kind of cool when you go into it, but it's an old elementary school that's sat vacant in the middle of town for 3 years, you know, and now it's full.
Okay.
So,
Jeff, can you speak real quick to when the folks come in to rent those spaces, kind of what you tell them to do? I mean, it's kind of you come in, make your own space, your own world, right? I mean,
yeah, so what they actually did up there, for example, with like the classrooms, they just rented raw classroom. Wasn't good looking space either, you know. Everyone that bought them, the price was very competitive. You can, they were renting those classrooms for $500 a classroom. That includes your utilities. Your internet's $75, so for $600 a month, there's 2 guys sharing. They didn't mind investing 3, 4, 5, 7, you know, whatever it is to make the improvement. So you got the price, you know, very affordable, you know, and then the individual tenants are, you know, doing the improvements and stuff. That's how they structured it up there, because they, you know, the buildings were purchased cheap, but the last month's heat bill was $4,800 too. So when you start talking about filling those places up, or going through some of the growing pains with the boiler system and some, you know, it sat for 3 years and nothing ran. So I mean, you're going to go through that, but that's on the private owner, you know, piece of it though. So
right.
I remember one of the comments you made was that they were not looking for fancy. The brick walls and the old wood floors.
Oh, hey, crappier the better today, I always say, right? You know, I mean, if you didn't come from, 30 years ago, you'd have drop ceilings and this and that, and all these lofts I go through in Port Huron and stuff. Larry Jones owns, you know, 3/4 downtown Port Huron. It's exposed brick. It is paint falling on the walls. It is, you know, I mean, it's that's cool today, you know, but 30 years ago, you better have drop ceilings and you better have, you know, drywall and so on and so forth. Just kind of interesting what, you know, how that has shifted, you know, big time, which is great, because I look at that little brick room you got in there. That's a cool room, you know, that old building. You come in there, the exposed brick and all that stuff, and just kind of, I think it tells a lot of the history of the joint too. That's just my little narrative.
Okay, is Dave here? You're gonna have Dave,
He's probably working while eating dinner, that's.
Yeah, he's out. He's not available.
okay.
Hey, I would encourage another tour. I'll let Laura decide if she wants to organize that, get some of the others through, and be more than happy to, you know, share. And we could get Dan Casey back down for another meeting just to kind of talk a little bit more. And if you think somewhere along the line the needs for, you know, facilitating something, you know, through our planning deal, they do a good job. And there again, they don't have a dog in the fight either, but could probably help, you know, with some. I'm going to be here. I'm not going anywhere. So if you have any questions for after the fact, I'll be around.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Shannon Schwabi is here from the SBDC.
Okay, hi.
Hi. I'm Shannon Schwabi. I'm with the Michigan Small Business Development Center, and I am the consultant for St. Clair County. And so if you're not familiar with the Small Business Development Center, what we do is we offer free, no-cost business consulting to anyone looking to start or grow their business. So for the last 2 years, I've been pretty wrapped up in helping the businesses navigate the pandemic and the COVID emergency funding, PPP, EIDL, that kind of stuff. Now that we're shifting, I am working with a ton of startups. You'd be surprised at the different kinds of startups that we have in our county. And I can reiterate what Jeff is saying when I say my clients need space. They can't afford a big space. I've got someone that's looking for a small space. She just wants to move her cottage food business out of her house and into a space. And so she doesn't want to sell from there. She needs a small kitchen that she can work from. It doesn't have to be a full kitchen. I work with people that just need meeting space to meet with their clients. So as you know, there's like 60,000 photographers in our county, and where do they go to meet with people, right? So if they have their own space, so these are just a couple of the different startups that I'm working with. I'm a coworker. I work from home. I work at the Underground in the Port Huron. I also work down at Dock 421, And so I understand what the co-working atmosphere is and need space myself. So when I need office space to go to, I don't get to stay in my hometown. I need to go to Algonac or I need to go to Port Huron. So it would be great. Sometimes Laura and Stacy will let me use a chamber to meet with people if they're local, but otherwise I don't have that kind of space. So those are valid needs in our community. And so Laura wanted me to come to kind of talk about how I would be of service to help. So, like I said, I'm just here to support. I'm here to help flush out ideas. I'm here to help run projections, help look at the financial aspect of it to make decisions, things like that. I supported Laura on the marina project in town, kind of helping her formulate her presentation, kind of run some numbers on that. And then I would also be here to help any of the businesses moving into the space to get started. So that's another awesome benefit of what we do is it's free. It's prepaid for by your tax dollars. We are funded by the SBA, and we have been for over 40 years. So having that asset in your community is really going to help expand your business base. So that's a little bit about me, what I do, and what I think. So.
Any questions? Okay, thanks, Shannon. What else we got?
I just want to share a couple other, I want to again emphasize that the draft project that we presented at the last meeting was an idea that includes input and involvement of all the groups and people that are stakeholders in this project. So that doesn't exclude anybody, but instead includes everybody and is very collaborative. One thing that I mentioned was one of the benefits that we have in our region is the blue meets green. And a lot of people are not familiar with that, but that was something that was developed. There were some stakeholders, I believe Jeff was part of that, Randy Myers from the Community Foundation, the EDA. It was a place for people to come together, present ideas, as we did with our Marine City Arena project. You present the idea in front of stakeholders that represent the entire county. From that, there are people that vote on your project that you present. We were lucky. We presented our project for the marina, and we received #1 votes. And that means that they considered that to be a priority for our county. So that's huge. So that gives you extra, X marks and everything else going forward when you're looking for funding, grants or anything else. One of the things that I did present in that proposal was that would be something that we could do. We could put together a Blue Meets Green project. We can represent the entire region. I know this was attempted years ago, which was very community-based. It needs to be regionally based. It needs to not say community center, but more broader based in order to get funding. But being recognized in our county and in our region as a #1 project or even a 2 or 3 gives you clout to go forward with grant opportunities. So I know that this group that we would put together would spearhead that, and I know we could be very successful in presenting that, and I would be more than happy to help spearhead that.
Thanks, Laura. Judy, you're up.
The sunglasses are not an affectation. I was at the eye doctor this morning, and my eyes are still dilated, so I can't really see your faces.
I'll be that way next week, so don't feel bad.
Sort of like to bring the discussion back to City Hall and our purchase offer. We made that purchase offer because we knew that it would increase our eligibility for a new, broader variety of grants. And give us a leg up on raising money to go into what we call phase 2 of the interior restoration of the building. Phase 1 really started with us back in 2017 when we wrote our business plan, which we did with the help of EDA. And in that business plan, we proposed a couple of rooms in the basement as incubators for business. So that has been an idea that we have promoted from the very beginning. And since 2017, with one exception, we have accomplished more in that building than the city has in decades, many decades. In my opinion, the city has not focused on the building. The building has not been a priority since mid-century. And so we have invested more time and energy and money. It's over $300,000, bringing the interior of that city into the 21st, the interior of the building into the 21st century. I think restoration of an old building requires focus. It has to be your priority. In the articles of incorporation for Friends of City Hall, there are simply 3 points about the fact that we are devoted to the restoration, preservation, and promotion of City Hall. That's all we care about. And with that narrowness of focus, I think that has helped us to be as successful as we have been, particularly in the last 3 or 4 years. I think another thing that restoration requires is that you have to have knowledge, or you have to gain the knowledge as you do it, and you have to know the building, and you have to know the history, and you have to know the art, and you have to know the aesthetics, and you have to respect all of that as you move forward. It's difficult because in some instances a building is so damaged that you cannot turn the clock back and know exactly what that room looked like in 1884. And that's certainly the case in some instances with City Hall. So then what do? You have to do justice to it. You have to know the period. You have to know the general expectations, and you have to live up to it. And that is not cheap. In fact, you should never do it on the cheap. And so one of my worries and one of my torments is, if that kind of mentality is not behind the restoration of the building, are we going to get Formica bathrooms? Is it going to be something that years later, more experienced and greater expertise walks into the building and says, oh boy, who did that? And you know exactly what I'm talking about, restoration on the cheap. I distributed, or Andrew distributed, this little flyer to you. If you want to take a look at that. I thought it would be pertinent to my remarks tonight. There's something about the building that most people do not know. If you talk to Michigan historians, they will tell you there are 6 surviving opera houses in Michigan. I have been to several of them, Calumet, Rochester, Howell, Traverse City. The one that's closest to the Marine City experience is Calumet. Very, very similar situations in history between Calumet and Marine City. Marine City rich from the wood shipbuilding industry. Calumet copper mining. Copper mines petered out, that industry collapsed, their economy collapsed. But while they were rich, they built a building that was a combination of City Hall and Opera House. I think one thing to know about Michigan 19th century opera houses is very few of them actually had opera companies come and perform. The title Opera House was a name that connoted culture and suggested that what was going to be performed in the opera house was not going to be something bawdy and terribly dirty, that it would be good for families and even young people, and that it would be culturally enriching. So a small place like Coldwater, Michigan, has an opera house. And that means, wow, we have arrived, and wow, we have culture, and we have an entertainment center. So I wanted you to look at those 6 that are there. Andrew did the writing for it and pulled the pictures off the internet. And what's wrong with the 6 list is, in fact, there's a 7th. And the 7th is Marine City. So it is kind of the forgotten, surviving opera house. Part of the business plan, part of the intention of Friends of City Hall is to put that opera house back to work and to have performances there and to return it to its function as a center of entertainment and culture, and surely on a small and modest scale, but to bring that back to life in Marine City. And we thought that that was completely appropriate as an activity and completely proper and in honor of the building, doing it justice. Well, what else? Well, we decided that the what else in the business plan was to turn it into a rental venue, feeling that it would be a place of families, it would be a place of celebration, it would be a place of group enjoyment, and nothing about it would be derogatory to the building. Nothing would fly in the face of the honor of the building as the center of community life in Marine City for 137 years. I would hope that you would let us have a chance to finish phase 2, which is the elevator and the ADA accessible bathrooms. And with that success, open on a small scale to let the public in, because it's now legal to do so. And perhaps that would help us to raise even more money for a phase 3, which would be to do the pretty work, to finish the painting and the stenciling and what have you, that would return it to its original glory. I have to say, if you choose to do that, we, of course, would be honored and we would be thrilled. And if something goes wrong and we cannot finish that building, we cannot finish that restoration, what is the worst possible thing that could happen? And the answer to that is, the building goes back into your hands and includes whatever else we were able to get done. So I promise you we mean well. We are focused, we have priorities, we are serious. We have spent 11 years learning that building and everything that needs to go with it for a decent restoration. So we promise you our best. Thank you.
Judy?
Yeah.
Judy? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to holler, but I guess you're hard of hearing. Tell us about your management group. Who is spearheading, who is doing the legwork to get this work done?
We have a committee
to apply
called-
for the grants, and what grants do you anticipate moving forward?
We've been doing the grant seeking so far by ourselves. We will not be doing that. If we are able to purchase the building, we are going to hire a professional grant writer. And we know who we would like to hire. And she has said she would work for us.
Tell us about the team that you have working on the restoration plans, working on doing the legwork. Who?
It's called the Building Committee. And it's myself, Robert Lepley, Jim Turner, Bill Butel. Who am I leaving out? Oh, here's Bill. Sorry, I'm pointing at the wrong person. So we are the group that, we meet with the architect, who is really, the head of the pyramid. The architect's project manager is a gal named Lori Perlick, and she works with us most directly. It's sort of the go-between between us and the architect. And by the way, he has the drawings done for phase 2. What he needs is certainly some money and the go-ahead.
Any questions for?
I have a few. I apologize, my brain's in a fog today. It's been a long few months.
Mine too, because, if you can't see, you can't think. It's like, bleh.
And before I start, I am just in fact-finding mode. I'm not advocating anything right now. So the first question is I know you mentioned you have a grant writer you would like to use. Do you have the funds available to contract with them should the sale go through?
Currently, yes, we do.
Okay. The second one is, if my memory serves, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, the Friends of City Hall has the right of first refusal if the city decided to sell that building. Is that correct? I believe
In the
that-
purchase offer, we gave the city right of first.
No, I'm saying if
Present
the
state,
city
yeah.
decided we want to sell it to a private entity, the Friends of City Hall has the right of first refusal to buy it at the market price. Is correct? Okay. I'm not advocating at all,
No,
but
I know. Actually, to the best of my knowledge, we do not have that. All we have as an agreement with the city right now is the lease.
It's in that.
It's in,
Oh, okay.
It
you're
is in
talking
the
about
lease.
What's in the lease? Okay, in that sense, yes.
so just devil's advocate, if the city did go out and say, we want to sell this to a private developer to do whatever, would the Friends of City Hall exercise that right of first refusal?
The board would have to decide that. I
I mean,
wouldn't decide.
obviously, it depends on money, obviously, but
Yeah, yeah.
I think you said earlier that you would try to get a mortgage to do that?
We could make that effort, yes. We know of one instance where that worked on a project like this, and that would be the Howell Opera House. The Livingston Arts Council wanted to save the Howell Opera House on Main Street in Howell, Michigan. and they rented it. And then they decided they would be much better off as owners. And so they went to a bank. And, they started kind of small. I don't remember the total of their first mortgage. And they struggled with that, but they managed to, make their payments. And, they started their business, which is a rental venue. And once they got rolling, we were told that the year before we visited, they cleared $100,000 from that rental venue. That's clear. That's after all the bills are paid and what have you. So reaching that level of success, they were easily able to not only carry that mortgage, but they remortgaged the building and they bought the building next door. Knocked a hole through the wall between the two buildings and preserved the 19th century character of that additional building and enlarged their business. And it's the business that allowed them to save the Opera House.
Okay, I have two more, sorry.
It's all right.
The next one is, have you, especially post-pandemic, have you, or the Friends of City Hall, I should say, done a market analysis for, assuming you get the habitability, the elevator and the ADA stuff done so you can allow the public in? Yeah. Have you done a market analysis so now that we're in the midst of this pandemic,
Right.
Is there a demand for your vision of it?
From verbal commentary, not research, but verbal commentary, we've been told over and over, this is going to really work. This is going to be really popular because the building is exotic. And it's very unusual, and it's very different from all other medium-sized rental venues that people want to get married in or have their reception in, and so on. And I believe that that's absolutely true. Now, in terms of a more scientific analysis, I've been working with Charles Donaldson of MEDC, and Charles and I spoke yesterday and again this morning, and he said that is something that has to be a priority with us. And we have to do that work, and we have to write it up as he carries it around to his team in Region 6 to seek money for us. So that's on our plate.
And then that was also kind of part of my question is, have you done any sort of, again, post-pandemic, because everything's changed now.
Yes.
Have you done any sort of pro forma financial statements, analysis, et cetera, so you know if there is this demand, how much can we charge, how much profit can we expect to get out of this that we can put towards the building?
Yeah. All we have is what's in our business plan, and Charles finds that is also dated and needs to be upgraded. So that's the best I can tell you. I thought what we wrote in there in terms of our estimates was pretty good when we first did it. But I admit, it's become dated now.
And unfortunately, with the again with the pandemic, everything since 2020 is pretty much almost obsolete.
Yeah.
So the last question I have is, I know you've mentioned grants, and if you have ownership of the building, it's easier for you to apply for a grant.
It's actually not easier, but there are just more grants that are available that require that you own the building. USDA Rural Development, for example, is a good example of that.
If the city decided to retain ownership of the building, would there be anything prohibiting you from saying, there's a grant out there that we think you should go forward with? Let's write the grant, have the city slap their letterhead on it, and then the city can apply for it on your behalf.
I suppose, yes. There becomes a complication, however, it's the city's money.
Yeah.
They can't hand it to us. And that would be a violation of all sorts of,
Sure,
rules
I
and
mean,
regulations.
obviously,
So the city has that authority and that responsibility. And then the question becomes, are they working with our architect? Are they following our drawings, that we paid for? Who's doing that? Who's making those decisions? Who's making those choices?
and I didn't want to get into those weeds. I just wanted to know, is that a possibility?
I guess, all things are possible, but working out the day-by-day financial and legal aspects might trip it up.
That's all I have for now.
Those are good
Brian,
questions.
John,
though.
anything for Judy?
I'm good, but thank you.
Yeah, I just, my question would be, if you're running it, like your three, what were your three, restoration, preservation, and I didn't get written down fast enough,
Restoration, preservation, and promotion.
promotion.
Yeah.
And
And we-
promoting the building or the city or all of it, or what do you feel that?
Well, building first.
Yeah,
Building first. However, remember I distributed that document about how restoration is good for the city?
yeah,
Or any city? We've always known that, City Hall is like this empty zone. There's no oxygen there. Nothing's, much is happening. But it could, and there could be lots of feet on the street, and it could be a place of excitement and pleasure, and the lights on practically every night. All sorts of things can happen there, and that's what we want. We
Right.
want it to be lively. And we know for sure that if it is, that's a draw for Marine City. That's a draw. Some couple come and have their, kind of small, modest wedding reception there. People discover Marine City. They come, where were they? Oh, Romeo or something. They come over, never saw Marine City before. They're coming back. So it's like this nice little magnet, for the community.
now what's your, I know you talk about preservation, and I understand that, in all of the historical context and the history of the building.
Yes.
But when it comes to being more accessible for the community, is there room to make any, obviously you've done the fire suppression system. That's, certainly not, in period. With, all the fire suppression is kind of a new modern thing. But I'm asking, like, is there room for both? Is there room for the opera hall, the opera house of it to be that, that historic part? And is there, in your mind, a way to make the rest of it a little more modern on the interior to be accommodating to these other options?
We would certainly, let me give you an example of what our intentions are for the bathrooms.
Yeah,
For interior decor, we're looking at Victorian-era subway tile in white, and the floor to be the small octagonal tile in white with black accents. You've seen that before.
yeah.
Right, that already sets up the atmosphere that it is a Victorian building, and this is in keeping with that. The basins would be a variation on a Victorian pedestal wash basin, but without the pedestal to accommodate wheelchairs. And the toilets themselves would not be Victorian at all. They would be the tall
Sure.
toilets that are now popular.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that's how we feature that, and then there would be glass with a, appropriate sort of Victorian framing for over the wash basins. And this is not exotic or difficult. It is extremely easy to buy those materials. They're very common. They're readily available, and in quality varieties. So. For what we call the mason room, which is the main room on the main floor,
Okay.
we want to keep that a simple open rectangle so that it has a multi-purpose function. And I personally would lobby for carpeting in that room to modify the sound. And we have to spray between the beams of the ceiling to seal off the noise from the Opera House, because foot traffic is like booming. So that's got to be, closed, and we have to plaster that. So chandeliers and what have you have to hang from there. In terms of the chandeliers, we need to have 3 varieties of lighting: broad general lighting like this room right now, just chandeliers, mood lighting. It all has to be very, adjustable. Finding sconces and chandeliers to suit the room is very simple. Very, very many styles that are, available for that. So actually what I'm talking about is quite modern with a traditional, flavor.
Okay.
So you mentioned a rectangular multi-purpose room. What would you do with that room to bring in further restoration monies?
What would we do with that room?
Yes, how would you?
We saw that room as a place where a family wants to have a party, but their house isn't big enough. And they would like to have that large party catered, and that's what that room could be. That room plus the Opera House would be part of a larger wedding celebration. That room could also be used by the city for meetings. It can be used by clubs and associations. So, it really has a multiplicity of functions. We didn't see the basement as that sort of thing. We saw the basement as utilitarian, probably 2 rooms for the incubators, and some eastern space for storage, supplies, and what have you.
Rent out the jail cells as incubators.
I'm sorry.
You can rent out the jail cells as incubators.
The jail cells are going to be so popular with married couples. Can you imagine the bride, behind bars? I promise you,
Every groom's.
that'll sell the building for us.
Right.
No, we are not touching the jail cells. Those awful, icky, gray, grim, it's going to stay just as it is.
I'd like to give other people a chance to comment or speak. Yeah. Judy, thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So I was one of the people who went with the tour of Eddy Elementary in St. Clair, and I just jotted down a few notes as I went through that. So after touring Eddy Elementary in St. Clair County with Jeff Bohm and with Dan Casey from the EDA, and seeing how an old school can be once again turned into an asset for the community and region, I walked away refreshed with great ideas about what can be done with Old City Hall. Seeing the progress being done in Port Huron at the Roost and at the Underground for incubator space, co-working areas, private offices, and workshops to help entrepreneurs, that furthered my enthusiasm for the options at Old City Hall. The option of collaboration is not to take away Old City Hall from the Friends of City Hall project. Instead, it's to help them. It's not only to help the Friends of City Hall, but it is also to unite the city. It's to bring groups together and achieve a common goal, which is to be able to use Old City Hall, a building that is at the heart of our city and dear to all of our hearts. The option of collaboration means that the city of Marine City takes charge of their amazing asset. It means that no one gets displaced. It means there is a greater ability to acquire grants for funding. It means that current plans for the building may need to be reviewed or assessed to gain the overall benefit for the building. Preservation or returning Old City Hall to its former glory may be too big of an endeavor and limit the building's potential, but refurbishing and renovating can be accomplished. By using skill sets and talents from a bigger pool of people, we automatically lessen the load. Collaboration means that personal, selfish wants must be left behind for 300 Broadway to succeed. Thanks.
Do you guys have to leave?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because I want to keep this going.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Bob? Okay? Yeah.
Okay. I'm Bob Lepley. I'm currently the Vice President of the Friends of City Hall Group. I apologize for any repetition that might occur here, but I know you're beleaguered with information. This is my point. And Jeff, by the way, we have tons of exposed brick down there, so if that's the in thing, come on down. Currently, obviously, faced with three proposals here. One is Friends of City Hall's purchase for $1 for 10 years, first right of refusal by the city. Second is the city manager proposal for the city takeover with the grant and restoration promises. And third is a proposal based on a new coalition of various charitable entities, including Friends of City Hall, Pride and Heritage, Historical Society, Chamber of Commerce, and others. So those three things the commission is going to have to consider. First, I want to compliment the study group for their intelligence and their energy and perseverance and interviewing citizens about their view about restoring and maintaining the existing city hall. In fact, their conversations with citizens has yielded us new members with youth and energy, enthusiasm, and IT skills, which will certainly benefit our ongoing mission. I am, of course, in favor of the Friends of City Hall proposal to purchase for a 10-year period and want to speak to that viability. I spent some time, my wife had a couple horses at one time. We took them to Lexington, Louisville over the years, and I'm not a horse guy, I'm a golfer. So she was grooming horses and I was golfing. In the city of Louisville, Kentucky, I golfed on 11 public courses which were owned by the city. And it was curious. One day it was raining, and I ended up in the clubhouse for a hot dog and a beer to stay dry. And it was slow during the week, and the pro shop manager came over and sat down, asked where I was from, and this and that and the other. And in the course of the conversation, I asked him how the city of Louisville came about owning 11 golf courses, 3 of which were 9-hole courses, and the other 8 were 418s. And he explained that starting back in the 1800s, the city would lease city property to a golf course developer who was interested. For a period of 30 years, they would develop a golf course, and at the end of they were tax-free and kept all the money and the profit during that 30-year period. And at the end of the 30 years, the city got it back, and they ended up with 11 golf courses in the end. That kind of opened up a real vision for me of what can be possible. I want to point out that Friends of City Hall is the only group whose bylaws demand that every cent they raise, every cent, goes toward the restoration and continued maintenance of the building. They have no other interest. They also propose that Once the building is fully restored, and we all want that to happen as quickly as possible, but we need to be patient, as you know. Once it is fully restored, they will, any monies that are left and continuing their work to maintain a maintenance fund that will be ongoing. Now, another point is mayors, commissioners, and board members like yourselves, and their agendas come and go. You know that as well as I do, right? And frankly, the city's 137-year history of maintenance, of maintaining that city hall is not great. After the building was abandoned in August of 2005, a town hall meeting was held with about 120 people in attendance. The mayor commissioners were invited in writing and none attended. Rick Ames was the then head of the DPW, had been with the DPW until he retired with 25 years of service. He was designated by then city manager Nagy to come to that city hall meeting and take the flag on behalf of the city. And he showed up. He pointed out that the city budgeted $5,000 a year, but most often when he went to draw on it, it had been diverted to other issues. Now, I ask each of you, and I know my house isn't worth what City Hall is, and yours probably isn't either in most cases, but at any rate, $5,000 a year for a building that size and maintaining a building that size, I kind of put that much in my house about every year, I'm sure. So, at any rate, okay. Another point, earmarks are gone. Grants for municipally owned buildings are virtually non-existent. Port Huron is currently in a situation with a city hall that's a new commercial building with a lifespan of estimated 50 to 60, 70 years. They built it for $12 million. Now they're trying to, they are faced with $8 million in repairs to maintain it, and I understand they're trying to sell it. That building down there will be around after I'm gone for sure. Another point, with business and individual memberships, Friends of City Hall numbers over 200 members now. Regarding a new coalition, FOC, Friends of City Hall is and has been in constant relationship with the Historical Society, the Pride and Heritage Museum folks, the Historical Commission, and the Chamber of Commerce. Friends of City Hall has a professional level grant writer available free of charge. We also consult with the retired Macomb County grant writer in charge of human services grants for Macomb County. He has referred us to several available grant sources. Also, Friends of City Hall ownership of the building creates an opportunity for grant funding that is just not available to the city for municipal buildings. Many projects toward restoration have already been completed thanks to the generosity of grants, donations, fundraisers, and member contributions in both money, time, and effort. The current HVAC system, for example, was donated by a contractor, a licensed contractor who happens to be a member. ADA compliance is priority one, and an elevator is next on the list, as you heard before. Once again, the city has had 137 years to maintain this building. We're asking for 10. And the result for the city is they get it back, hopefully handsomely restored. Okay?
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Joe?
Jim? Yeah.
Jim Turner.
Jim, before you begin, let me
Yes.
just get the sense of the room. Does anybody need to speak to 303 Water Street today? Because I don't want to leave you hanging as we continue with 300 Broadway. Okay, Jim, you're on.
Thank you, sir. I guess I got one question, probably for you, Holly.
Okay.
You've noticed the lift out front of the old city hall. It's been there, I guess, 4 or 5 days. We've, the Friends of City Hall has contracted with Poe Construction to do a really extensive evaluation of mainly around the tower, but it leads into the common area, which is 1,200 feet of the 2,600 that a coalition might look at first. My question to you is, when they come back with those numbers, say next week, and the city owns the building, you prepared right now in your budget to take it on and fix it?
Well, I think that that is part of the conversation we need to start having. I
Okay.
mean, at the end of the day, that building is the city's asset, regardless
Yep.
of whether or not Friends of City Hall is using it.
Right.
Or leasing it. And I think that, you know, to segue off some of the other conversations that have been had, the city is going to have to play a bigger role in dealing with the architecture, dealing with the engineers. It is our asset. And I
Okay.
think that prioritizing the actual needs, wants, and whatever else actually probably needs to have the city at the table. Because regardless of which way this goes at the end of the day, you're still saying that the city is going to eventually get this building back.
Okay.
Whether it's in 10 years or tomorrow or whatever we decide to do. It's still ours, it's still the city's, and everything that happens to it is going to be our problem at some point, whether the restorations were done or not.
Okay.
So I think that before any more money is spent, before any more money is spent on even engineering plans, I think the city needs to be at the table to start deciding it's the future of its own asset.
Okay. So we spent $2,000 to have this evaluation done. The Friends did, Friends of City Hall.
Right.
Water is pouring inside the building right now. Every time it rains heavy, it's coming in. It's damaging interior structure right now, today. In the common area, which is the old police station. So
So in a case
something
like that,
needs to be addressed.
and I will speak to that. So our DPW supervisor came to me the day that he saw the lift on the property and said, "What's going on?
Yep.
Why weren't we called first?" That was a communication breakdown. Friends of City Hall should have called the city first and should have sent our DPW in there to figure out what was going on and fix the problem.
Well, you would have had to get a lift to get up on top to see behind the tower.
But we could have acted possibly quicker, who knows? We could have possibly fixed something internally, but it's just, you know, there's been a lack of communication I mean, we're kind of seeing it, a control and a divisiveness between the groups.
So in this.
We need to start working
in
better
this
on it.
Renter versus landlord situation that we're currently
Right?
in.
But we have to know.
Hang on, let me ask
We have
my
to know
question.
about it.
So had we just come to you and said, water's coming in the building, take care of it, would you have taken care of it?
We would have had to do something because it is our asset.
All right,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Communication breakdown, it's a Led Zeppelin song, I get it.
Thank you, Jim. Just a minute. Nope, okay.
I'd like to speak to a couple of things.
Okay.
I feel that it was part of the project that we talked about.
See, Bob.
So Judy spoke a little bit about restoring and wanting the Opera House to be what it used to be and all that. And I understand that, and I'm going to tell you why. I know the big difference between restoration and renovation. I have a 1900 home in St. Clair that is absolutely beautiful. It was renovated to modern conveniences, but with the beauty of old restored. I have a 1927 theater in Marine City that you would never know it's taken on 1 million lives. But we have kept that beautiful old integrity, but yet brought modern conveniences. I have been involved in a lot of restorations. I restored a 1927 French Tudor in Birmingham, Michigan, that sold for upwards of $2 million. And I've been involved in other projects. So I see the beauty of old, but I also see the need for repurposing and reusing properties in a way that is beneficial to everybody. The proposal that we brought to you is for all of us to work together. I love the idea of the Opera House. I think it's fabulous. So that is something, if that's something that Friends is the most passionate about, then I think that is something that they could spearhead. But this subcommittee would work that way. This would be the first time that Marine City is able to get together as a group, work on a project this grand, and bring it to fruition. We are known, I'm sorry, we are known in this region for having issues with communication and always 300 Broadway being a problem. I want the problem to go away. I want the past in the past. I don't want to hear about what happened and who did this and these people are this and these people are that. I want us to move forward and create something that is the anchor to our region. And I think that we can do that with this project. We need to all work together, and that's what collaboration is about, and that is what I would like to propose, and what the groups that I've talked to would like to propose to Marine City. I think it would be amazing. 300 Broadway is a phenomenal building. It's in the heartbeat, okay? It's the heartbeat of our community. I don't want it to be the I don't know what you want to call it, the anchor, the bad anchor, or
Problem child.
the prodigal child.
Problem child.
Problem child,
You
so.
want it to be the prodigal child.
Anyway, so I'm just saying, we're all on board. I mean, we're gung-ho, we're ready to go. We know with the Community Economic Development Board, we got that support. That's why you started this board, to head up projects like this and get it going. And we've got a great support, team here. So, anyways, that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Laura. Louise, you sure you didn't have anything?
No, the only thing, I'll just take 2 minutes. I agree with what Laura said. And one of the questions I have in my confused little head is, how did City Hall, when it was working as a City Hall, look when you walked into City Hall? It was a functioning city with offices, etc., and so forth. Now, the Opera House is one of my favorite places to go, and when I talk to people about the City Hall, I talk about the fact that the acoustics in that room is perfect. You don't find that very many places. They built a brand new convention center and Opera's house, if you want to call it that, in Detroit, and it was so bad that they had to go back to the original orchestra hall. We have an orchestra hall, and we have to look at it and make it look the beautiful way it looked. And there's some vestiges of how it looks, so we can do that. I don't know if we have any pictures of City Hall functioning as City Hall. On the other hand, you can tell from paint and so on and so forth how it was decorated to some point. And we can do that. And we can bring these things kind of together and maybe make everybody happy. And depending on how many places you want to have an incubator or whatever, can an architect look at the space we have and be able to have some place for somebody to have a wedding reception, etc., and have it beautiful. And furthermore, in a business that is well done in a building, it can be very beautiful. I've gone in businesses where I was just awestruck on how lovely it looked, because it didn't look like a business, it looked like beauty. And I think we have to keep beauty in our head, getting some way to get money that keeps coming, and we have to figure out how many people are getting married and having weddings.
Thanks, Louise.
City policy.
Okay.
Joe, can I speak to the money a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the things I just want to circle back on, because I'm always going to come back to the money. You guys know that. And the business perspective, the longevity, the long-term planning for the city. That's where we're tasked at making decisions, is long-term, what is the best for the city, the residents, the taxpayers of this town, both financially and maybe historically. So we need to consider what really are the viable options. And I'm not downplaying anybody's stuff. I'm not taking sides here one way or the other. I just, from everything that we've been listening to, meeting after meeting, we have to start figuring out what are truly the viable options. And you know, Friends of City Hall has a place in Marine City, and they have a place with Historic City Hall. But I keep coming back to the longevity factor, you know, and it's been something that Judy has said herself. We have to consider, are we just kicking the can down the road for another 10 years by not having the city step in at this point and do something with their asset? Yes, some things may get done in the next 10 years, but a lot of things might not still get done in 10 years. And now all we've done is kick the can down the road, and now we're inheriting a building that has possibly greater problems than it does right now. If we have a board, you have teams, you have committees, we have more contacts in the county and in the state than we've ever had with historic restorations, with incubator spaces, with the new age. This is what's coming up. They can give us statistics to tell us why things will work and why certain things won't work. We've got the people in the community who finally have a passion to do something rather than just continue to accept status quo. So I think that it's time that we really do start saying what is in the best interest of the city. And kicking the can down the road another 10 years does not sound like the best interest for anybody. So if incubator spaces works, if repurposing things work, there's nothing saying that we can't still preserve some of the history and the beautiful building it is and do those things inside it. We can do those things inside it. Maybe the city does it. Maybe you decide, let's sell it to a private entity and let them do it. They could maybe even do it faster. They got deeper pockets. But there's nothing saying either of those are going to hurt the historic value of that building whatsoever. We can still preserve it if somebody other than Friends of City Hall is at the steering. So Laura spoke perfect to it. We all just need to work together, but we need to figure out who's going to spearhead it and start finding that path. I disagree a little bit with some of the comments that were made. I've had a lot of conversations with different folks from the EDA to the MEDC to the Community Foundation about funding. The city is going to have the best chances of going after the grant money. There is not a ton out there for historic renovations of any sort. There's going to be different ways that things need to be worded. And Jeff's mentioned them and Laura's mentioned them about repurposing of things. That's where the grant money is going to be. But we have deeper pockets than Friends of City Hall does to go after that stuff. Another comment that was given was that if Friends of City Hall, if the contract was done, say you were going to get it back, the city was going to get it back in 10 years. So Friends of City Hall would be less likely to actually get that grant money if the person handing it out knows that they're not going to actually be keeping the building. If somebody else is going to take it back in 10 years, they're less likely to get that money. That is from somebody who does this for a living. So there are little nuances that need to be thought of through the process. But we need to start figuring out if we keep it, if you sell it, we have to start forging a path on which way is the right way to go with this.
Okay. One more comment. Anybody? All right. What I would like to do, gentlemen, is suggest that it is time for us as a work group to start making some decisions about which direction we think is the best way to go. I was hoping we would have time tonight to start a discussion on that. It seems like we should wait till next week, but I would ask you to do this. I think our starting point, and you may disagree with me, and please feel free to, I think our starting point should be to decide whether we are going to keep the asset or sell the asset, whether it's to Friends of City Hall or to a third party. I think that should be our initial focus, and if you would want to take the next 2 weeks, our next meeting is the 21st, is that correct? The next 2 weeks to mull that over.
Do you want to discuss both next in 2 weeks or just one building at a time?
Same question.
I think we should probably start with 300 Broadway,
Just
until
Okay.
we get some traction.
figure that out first, and then we can move to the
Because
303
some of
Water
the, some of
Street.
the things that we're gonna decide about 303 Water Street sort of depend on what we're doing with 300 Broadway. Because if we're thinking about taking the sale money and transferring it, or, you know, whatever, those are just,
Yeah.
we need to kind of know.
I mean, I personally would like a couple weeks to kind of process what we've obviously heard today, plus in the last couple meetings, and kind of really work it over in my mind a little bit. But I agree with you. I think we need to start discussing, I think we have all the information that's pretty much available right now. Now it's time for us to discuss and figure out what to do.
Okay.
Is there anybody else that we can bring in to provide you guys with anything that you want? I mean, do you want to hear from, private entities that have done this, how it's worked for them? Do you want to hear from any of the, the county groups? Do you want to tour anything? If there's anything we can do to provide you with anything more.
So I'd still like to tour 303, even though we're going to focus on 300 at the next meeting. I wouldn't mind hearing from some contact that officiates or helps communities develop ADA compliancy, if that's a possibility.
Okay.
Just so that we have all of our ducks in a row there, because I've heard a lot of consternation in that regard. I think those two should help.
Yeah, there are some differences of opinion as to how to make 300 Broadway compliant.
Well, either.
Or
Either, actually.
I think
I-
it's more,
well,
more
okay.
303, but.
Okay.
Lots
so
of
that might
Okay,
be-
consternation
for both.
on both
That might
ends,
be a-
both buildings, rather.
Well, and
Good
remember too, you don't necessarily want to put the cart before the horse either. If you guys decide that you don't want to sell it, that the city's going to retain the asset, this can slow down a hair because we can take the time to get an engineer in here to look at this. It wouldn't be
Sure.
so pressing to have by, the next meeting if you are going to keep the building.
Yeah,
So just remember some things like, again, it's the domino effect. One decision
Sure.
affects so many
So
behind
Do
it.
you want to do that before our next meeting, or wait until?
the ADA compliance or
Yeah.
the tour of 303?
The ADA compliance.
Well, I was figuring actually somebody could come and speak at a meeting, or,
I'll figure out,
Yeah.
I'll talk to an engineer
I
and
mean,
see
I
what
downloaded,
is easier.
it's hundreds of pages.
Right.
ADA,
And there's
workbook.
quirky things with, so Michelle pulled some information for me as well. There's some quirky things with ADA compliance in historic buildings. So, you don't want to just go slap up an elevator wherever you think it might fit. It could actually harm your ability to get money if it's not
Period.
pre-approved by people who do historic preservation. So, yes, the ADA could be a very big key to this. So that might be something we slow down. Let's get some people in here to talk to us about it, but we could pump our brakes on that one a little bit as far as if you choose to keep the building, there's time to figure that out.
Okay,
Joe,
John?
I have a
No, go
point of
ahead.
information, if I could put it in, please.
Can you be short?
The purchase offer clauses are all open for discussion. And if that clause that offers the 10-year buyback to the city is a problem, we can take it off the table, we can erase it.
Okay, thank you for that. John, what's your?
No, I think, but just something, it's going through my mind, and maybe this is crazy, but the idea that we have a guy center to kind of place, if you will, make that place or make that funding somewhere, is, I think with the Opera House being what it is historically, and the space below it being, it could be anything at this point, since it's pretty much gutted. Seems to me if the city were gonna keep the asset, that maybe that was maybe that's something to incorporate into that 300 Broadway. Like I said before, that money that's available, whatever that might be from the sale of 303 to go into 300 Broadway. And then to make, a portion, which maybe it's the portion that we keep like it, as it was, if you will, museum quality kind of restoration to that degree, be the Opera House. And that's, that's what we call the community center, and that's, part of that plan. I'm thinking if the city keeps the asset, that's probably a better, the best way in my mind to take those assets and not just keep throwing money from the city into something.
Okay, it looks like we've tabled 303 Water Street for this meeting. Our next meeting is March the 21st, is that right? Which is also a Monday?
Yeah.
And that was good with everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
And that meeting, we're just focusing on 300 Broadway.
We're just going to focus on 300 Broadway, and I'm going to limit the discussion so that we have the time to do that, unless we have someone from ADA.
Okay.
So does that sit with everybody? Okay, then I'll ask for a,
Joe, do you want to set another meeting after that?
just
one at a time?
you want to set
Thanks,
another
Jeff.
meeting
Thanks, Jeff.
after the 21st?
Sure.
Can you look that far ahead? Can we not do it on a Monday?
Thank you. I was just going to ask you that because our poor TV guys are having a terrible time with the Monday
Oh,
meetings.
man.
I got to
I'm
ship the
sorry.
equip. Oh, they're not in there. I got to do it.
Oh, you're doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, so any day but Monday, I guess. Tuesday's bad for you, right?
Yeah. I just need to find out when spring break is for my kids, but I don't know what date. It's coming up next month. I just don't know when.
The 26th, 25th through whatever it is.
Yeah, mine is last few days of, whatever, the 20s.
Last week of March.
28th through 1st.
I
are
don't,
mine.
the Holy Cross
Yeah,
is
I know, yeah.
moved theirs.
Yeah.
I just don't know where it's at.
Well, why don't we just,
But yeah, week of the
let's
4th.
just hold a
That's
meeting the
fine.
21st,
Yeah.
and then
We can
we'll
set it
decide
then.
from
There.
And
Sounds
I will,
all right
I
with
will
everybody?
find out
Week of the 4th would be
Okay.
2
my
weeks.
April schedule.
Okay.
Okay, so our next meeting is the 21st. It's a Monday at 5:30. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Sorry, before we, do we want to adjust the time, maybe 6:30 or something, just to mix it up? It doesn't matter to me. I'm just,
I wouldn't. You guys have all been able to meet to make this, and I mean, you've got more people running out at 6:30 than
That's
you've
true.
got coming in. So I don't know if I would mess with your time on that.
sure, it's fine by me. I just, just to,
I'd be
so
David.
nobody can say we didn't,
Yeah.
is my point.
Right.
I'd stick with the meeting in 2 weeks as it's planned, but then maybe.
Oh, for sure. No.
But maybe when we set the next one,
That's-
maybe we'll
yeah.
look at it.
No, I was not planning on
Yeah.
reconfiguring an existing meeting, only the future planned one. Anyway, motion to adjourn?
Support.
Any further discussion? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody,
Aye.
for your input and support.